Hey, welcome to Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. Don't go away. Our special guest, all the way from Fayetteville, Arkansas, Judge Joseph Woods. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome to Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. I'm Perry Black, your host, and on this show we have a very special guest all the way from Northwest Arkansas, Judge Joseph Woods. Did I get that right?
Pastor Black, it's good to be here. Good to see you.
You're dressed up for the show, and we appreciate you coming.
Absolutely.
Drove all the way in from Fayetteville this morning?
That's correct.
So we want to get to know you, and this show is all about fostering, mentoring, and adopting. And in our recent 2022 fundraiser for Second Chance Youth Ranch, you were one of our guest speakers.
What an honor.
And you brought the house down.
Oh, I think I shared with you that after you spoke, I'm like, do I need to go up there after you? Because you were phenomenal. But to see the large audience there, I know it had to be 700, 800 folks, and just kind of share a little bit what was on my heart. That was powerful. But the work that you guys do, I think, and to see the people who are there connected, it makes it all the more powerful because they're doing God's work, being faithful to the fatherless.
The annual banquet is God's reminder to us that He is faithful to the fatherless.
That's correct.
And He overwhelms us every year with people like you and partners and friends and business leaders and community leaders from all over the state in some cases. And God just keeps telling us He will give provision for His vision.
Come on.
You know, everybody says, well, where'd you get the idea? Well, it's a God idea. I wouldn't have never dreamed this up on my own. My pastor asked me back in the spring of 2001, right after we broke ground on the 300 acres out at the ranch. He said, Perry, are you excited about the ranch? I said, no, sir. The dream's exciting. The work is a lifetime.
Well, so
fulfilled, yes, but the excitement, that emotion is long gone. But it is a great adventure.
Well, when they talked about the number of kids who returned after 8, 10 years, just kind of their homecoming and coming back to that place and how powerful. So yes, the ranch may be the vision and all, but the lives that are impacted, the influence that you guys have, the reach that you have for generations to come, that's to me like, wow, that's powerful.
Well, we want our audience to get to know you because you, of all the folks that I know, and I know 2 or 3, you can relate to fostering and adopting as well as anybody. And so I want our audience to get to know you. So I'm going to ask you all kinds of personal questions.
Absolutely.
And since it's not scripted, our audience knows I'm just going to wing it over here.
Excellent.
So tell me, where did you grow up?
Grew up on the south side of Chicago, what they call is Roseland and Jeffrey Manor.
Yeah. Rough neighborhood?
Pretty rough neighborhood. And I didn't realize it as I was growing up. I just got gangs and drugs and mom and dads and make sure you protect your brothers and sisters. But I just kind of thought that's what everybody had because you live in the inner city like that.
Yeah, I thought everybody was on welfare when I grew up.
Absolutely right.
I was preaching one time at Agape Church and we had videos back then, and I gave a copy of my sermon to my mama, and in it I said, you know, we grew up poor. And I said, I remember going down in the station wagon with Mama and the family, and there was Paula, Paul, Perry, Pat, and Pam. That's me and my siblings, and my daddy's named Paul. And we were living with my grandpa, and in an old shotgun house in Jonesboro. And I said something about getting commodities, you know, the old commodity peanut butter and butter. And it really wasn't Malt-O-Meal, cheese. It was all. And I mentioned that. And my mother, she said, honey, I watched that sermon. And she said, baby, we weren't on commodities. Grandpa was. And I said, so we weren't poor? We just living with Grandpa? She said, no, Daddy would never take charity. And I said, well, thank God Grandpa took some.
Something we had to eat, right?
We had just a living room, a bedroom, and a little tiny kitchen with a literal ice box.
Wow.
Where you put big chunks of ice in the box back in the day. I'm kind of giving my age away. But it's difficult.
Oh, no doubt.
But I didn't know I was poor. I thought everybody was
poor. You played outside, you came in, you ate whatever was put on the table.
I didn't realize everybody didn't get free milk or free lunch at school. I didn't mind.
See, that's it. That's
So
exactly
you
right.
grew up in Chicago. We got about 3 minutes in this segment. Give me a tidbit. What was it like when you were born? How did you? What was your situation? That's the best way to answer.
Sure. In a brief, I knew I was adopted, and so I was found in the streets in Chicago.
When did you? How old were you when you found out you were adopted?
12 years ago.
12.
12 years ago. That's correct. I always knew I was adopted.
May I ask how old you are then?
Yeah, 57.
So at 45?
45,
is when
46.
you found out you were adopted?
No, found out that I was abandoned and found in the streets.
Oh, God.
Always knew I was adopted.
Yeah.
I was adopted at 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
And had been foster care for those 10 years, and I always knew all of that. But everything was closed. You didn't have access to the information, and that was to protect the people who gave you up for adoption, the ones who were adopting you, as well as the adoptee. 12 years ago, the laws changed and said you can have access to your original birth certificate. I'm thinking, wow, if I get that, I know who my birth parents are.
Wow. I mean, so you still, in spite of the fact you were adopted, you still want to know who your parents were.
Absolutely right.
And that's what we find at Second Chance Youth Ranch is our students come from very traumatic backgrounds, many of them, and but they still want to be loved and to be with their parents because
Absolutely.
that's the way
It's
God
tough.
created us.
It's a tough one.
Got a minute 40, and then I'm
Sure.
going to come back to your
All right.
story, but I
Sure,
want to leave the audience a tidbit here.
Uh-oh.
So there was an evening in Chicago, Illinois. It was snowing.
That's correct.
And it was freezing cold, and who ended up on a doorstep as an infant?
That's correct. That would be me.
That would be you.
That's right.
Tell us that. Tell us a tidbit, a 1 minute snippet, and then we're going to take a break and come back and really get into it.
Sure. Gentleman's coming out of his apartment complex one evening, snow and ice outside.
Work the night shift.
Working the night shift. He was a soup manufacturing supervisor at Campbell Soup. And as he walked out the apartment complex, there was a box in front of his apartment complex. He didn't know what was in the box because he saw it was a blanket moving inside the box. So he took his foot to move the blanket, and the blanket moved, and he saw it was a kid in there. He was looking up and down the street trying to figure out where this kid came from. He couldn't see anything because it was nighttime and snow and ice. So he picks the box up, and he walks back in, wakes his wife, wakes his neighbors, and that started them trying to figure out where this kid came from before they called the Chicago police to come and do the same thing. And they eventually took me to an orphanage, said, "You saved this kid." They told his name was Caesar Johnson, and they told him, "Hey, you saved this kid. He was froze out here. We're taking him to the orphanage." And I found him, and I was 45 years old at that point.
Yeah.
Just blew my mind.
Yeah, we want to talk about
sure,
him
sure.
because I want people to understand someone like Caesar is watching this show
Absolutely
right now
right.
and can change the
Absolutely
trajectory
right.
of a life by simply looking
That's right.
and responding to God's touch.
Good.
We're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back.
A mission field around you is filled with young hearts needing a forever family. And at Second Chance Youth Ranch, our team is committed to providing healthy, stable, loving homes and families to hurting children in the Arkansas foster care system and those up for adoption. Please contact us if you feel the tug at your heart to help foster or adopt, and find out the steps you could take to help fulfill a child's lifelong dream. Maybe you can't foster or adopt, but you could help. The need for thousands of children in the system is staggering. But with the help of faithful partners and business alliances, we are meeting those needs right now. Would you help us make a difference? Every gift, regardless of size, impacts a child's life directly and helps provide for a home in the gap right now. Visit the Second Chance Youth Ranch website at 2CYR.org to read more, watch the stories, and to make a contribution for a hurting child's care. Monthly partners are needed, so please contact us right away. And as you partner with this ministry, you are partnering with the Heavenly Father that has promised to be Father to the fatherless. God bless you for helping Second Chance Youth Ranch.
Hey, welcome back to Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. I know that this show will inspire you to be a difference maker. Our special guest, all the way from Fayetteville, Arkansas, Judge Joseph Woods. We are honored to have you on the show
So good to be
and to hear your story, because I know a lot of people can relate to hurting children or abandoned and abused kids.
That's right.
And for anyone just happens to be joining us, you were left as an infant in Chicago, Illinois on a doorstep in the snow.
That's correct.
A gentleman named Caesar, what's his name?
Caesar Johnson.
Caesar Johnson was working the night shift and leaving his apartment,
Yep.
stepped over a box, the box wiggled, he opened it and it was you.
That's correct.
Abandoned there.
That's correct.
Now the story, if I remember, your mom was actually hiding behind a tree to make sure somebody found you.
So I wrote 2 children's books, Saving Joy and Adopting Joy, and I wrote those probably 12, 13 years ago when I first found out that I was abandoned and found in the streets.
How can somebody find those books?
On Amazon, Karis Publishing, Amazon.com.
Give us the name again.
Amazon, the book Saving Joy, Joey, and Adopting Joy. And it tells the story that we're talking about today. But in the story, I didn't know who my mother was. So I, in my head, said, I imagine she was a young teen and she carried a basket down the street with me in it, with a blanket, and left me in front of this apartment complex and hid behind a tree with tears freezing on her face, hoping and praying somebody would come out of the apartment complex. Little did I know that she was a young person because I just found her.
How old was she when she had you?
21 years old.
21.
And I was a baby of 4, so she had a number of kids. But in real life, she actually lived down the street. I never knew that. I just found this out about a year ago because they found my biological parents, and the detectives who found them said, we knew we found your birth parents because they lived exactly down the street from where you were found. Wow. And that was just this year. But in my head, I'm like, how did I know that she was down the street? I didn't say she got on the plane and took me. I didn't say she got on the bus. When I wrote the book, I said she just walked down the street. And it was almost like the Lord said, because you were there, and that's why you remember it. I don't know, but somehow she was, but anyway, he came out, saw this box with a blanket moving, and called the police after they looked around the neighborhood. The police looked around the neighborhood, said, you saved this kid. We're going to take him to an orphanage.
How long were you in the orphanage?
Probably a year and a half before I started being fostered. And the people came, my parents, they had been married for a number of years, couldn't have kids, or they thought. And she said, well, I want to go to the orphanage downtown Chicago and we can foster care a little girl, is what their plan was. And they got there, saw all these kids, and she was a teacher. She loved kids, and she saw all these kids. I want all of them. And then she saw this little boy and said, nope, I want to foster this little boy. Started foster caring me.
And you were 10?
No, I was 1.5 at that time.
Oh, yeah. But
they foster cared me for 10 years because they started having kids.
Oh.
And the nuns and the orphanages were nervous. Are they going to get this kid back? They kept going back to Caesar. Hey, Mr. Caesar, do you want to adopt a kid? Because again, they were now having their own kids, and at 10 years old, they were like, no, we're going to adopt this kid. So they adopted me.
Tell me about Mr. Caesar Johnson. Because you said some years ago you reached back out to him.
That's correct.
And it really was impactful to his life, not realizing the trajectory of your life that changed simply because of his involvement.
That's correct.
Getting his mom, his wife, and the neighbors.
That's right.
Everybody else.
So again, I didn't know him back then when he found me. It was 12 years ago when the laws changed. I got this, what I thought was going to be original birth certificate, and people who are adopted, they want that original birth certificate because it gives some information like who your mom and dad and when they. And I got a foundling certificate. I never heard of a foundling. What is a foundling? I know what a birth certificate is. I got 3 daughters, grandkids. Well, the foundling certificate said you were abandoned, you were found on this day. I said, that's my birthday. They said, no, that's just the day you were found. Wow. You were found at this address, which happened to be Mr. Johnson's address, and by this man, Caesar Johnson, and you were received in the orphanage by this doctor. I went looking for the doctor, found him he had died in 1999. I said, I wonder, can I find the guy who found me? And this is again 12 years ago, and I ended up finding Caesar Johnson. And he tells a story that I write about in my children's book, which is he was going to work that evening and put his wife and kids to bed, and he sees this box.
Now, he was a veteran.
He was a private first class,
really mattered.
Korean veteran, struggled after he came back from Korea, had kids and family, but he lost friends. And so his family talked about how he struggled his whole life with just some of that. And then when I called, his wife was like, it just transformed him as well as his family. His family heard the story about this kid that he found, but now I met him, and for him to connect with me, it was almost like, I guess something hit and clicked, that you did save someone, you did have an impact on a life, and whether the war was lost cause in your mind, and because you lost family, friends, you did save a life. And guess what has happened?
So my life has meaning.
Absolutely. And
How often in the Bible do we see someone who seems to be insignificant have a tremendous impact? I just preached on 1 Kings 18. There's this guy who's serving in the courts. He's running the palace administration for the most evil king of Israel, which was King Ahab, and his name was Obadiah. He comes out of nowhere, much like Joseph in Egypt. He cares for 100 prophets while Jezebel's killing prophets.
That's right.
And who knows who Obadiah is?
That's correct.
But look at the lives that he changed and impacted, like Caesar Johnson.
That's right. Or Queen Esther, I mean, who was an orphan. I like and I identify with her. She was an orphan because her parents were killed early on, and then Mordecai kind of takes her on, but never in her wildest dream did she imagine she'd become a queen, let alone go and speak to the king. After I hadn't been called on it, hadn't been summoned. I can't talk to him.
Yeah, get yourself killed.
You are exactly right. But guess what? For a time such as this, if you don't say something, do you think that
you're going to be spared?
That's right. And so she's speaking up and had an influence to save that generation and generations thereafter because she did that.
One person with faith in God is a majority. Someone like Caesar Johnson, who perhaps questioned, has my life really been a life of significance? Gone through the war and the Korean War and all that, and wondering, why am I alive? What's the purpose of my life? Not realizing that just going to work one night, providing for his family, stepped over a box, and has impacted your life.
Absolutely.
And look at all the ripple.
That's correct.
Probably a spiritual tsunami.
That's correct.
Through
his family and mine. And his family still reaches out and talk, and we have a good relation even now. In fact, when he passed away, they called me in Arkansas and said he had passed. And again, and would you come and speak at his funeral? And
awesome.
That just, and they did the address. In fact, prior to him passing, they gave him a citation in the state of Illinois saying, thank you for serving our country and thank you for saving this kid, because now Arkansas gets a deputy secretary who's now running for county judge. And so again, this recognition, and I'm sure he wasn't doing any of this for the recognition.
No.
It's just that it has some significance, some value that God has created you for a purpose and a plan. And can you always articulate and know it? Or do you just walk in faith knowing that he does? And I think that's where it started to shape and reshape his family and the generations after his family, his grandkids. Wow, it really just changed Daddy when you found, or Granddaddy when you found him. And I just wanted to call and say thank you because you saved my life. I would not be here. You could have stepped over me and went on to work.
And that's why this show's on the air. So you can be reminded that you are making a difference when you don't even know it. Your turnaround, your breakthrough might be right around the corner. So keep on keeping on. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
I am Trinity and I'm 11. I like science and math. I like to get good grades in school. I like to have fun and talk to my friends. My favorite food is macaroni and cheese. My favorite color is pink. I want to be a nurse. I've been in foster care for the past 3 years. I think I've been in 7 places since I've been in foster care. I want to be adopted so I can have a family to love. I wish I could have a great life.
Welcome back to Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. I know these brief breaks between our segments touch your heart and inspire you on becoming a part of making a difference in the lives of children in foster care that are looking for forever families.
That's right.
So many just like you are just looking for forever families.
That's
and
exactly
a family that would love you as their own. And your story is so inspiring. And I know it's touching people that are watching right now. Judge, would you mind telling me, you were adopted at what age?
10 years old.
At 10. And you were adopted, was it a Christian family?
Yeah, they were Catholic, and they come to know and love on the Lord. I was raised in a Catholic church. I was going to become a priest. In fact, I got accepted in seminary and got there, but struggled with because I knew I wanted to have kids.
Yeah.
And in Catholic Church you couldn't have kids, and
So
so
how
I
did
left.
you come to faith in Jesus Christ?
Started probably when I was as a teenager, and just struggling with this whole, why was I giving up for adoption?
Yeah.
And it was hard to talk to my parents about it because they thought that they were not doing a good job as a parent, and it had nothing to it's just walking this identity, right?
Yeah.
As a teenager, most teenagers will walk through puberty
That's the
and
story.
the struggles that we all go through as a teen. I just had that added piece of who am I and where, and so I spent a lot of time journaling, and I would just talk to God. I was again an altar boy. I spent a lot of time in the church. So in that quiet time, he started speaking to me, and all of a sudden I got to this place where in Proverbs and looking at knowledge, wisdom, and understanding.
Yeah.
And he said, you've been praying and asking for this family and this peace. I just want you to know I've been with you always.
Wow.
And as that started, it just really started me to weep and cry, because even when I knew all I knew at that time was I was giving up for adoption, didn't know why. Was I a product of rape or incest and all.
Yeah.
And he said, but you're here and I got you. And I've been
known
with you the whole
since you were
time.
formed in your
Near the
mother's
end.
womb.
Absolutely right. And so that became my walk, and that's my,
Yeah.
and so from that point on, even though I wanted to continue to look for and understand where I come from, I always knew that I got Daddy. Daddy's here. He's been with me the whole time. That's my Father, our Father in heaven. So that's been my walk, and has been and continues to be.
How'd you go from Chicago to Arkansas? How'd that happen?
Yeah, there's there's a little company up in Northwest Arkansas. It's got little stores around the world called Walmart.
Little
there's a
tiny
little bitty
thing.
town,
Yeah.
and they wanted to grow, and they brought me to Northwest Arkansas to bring more people to Northwest Arkansas, and I brought a lot of people. If you've been up in Northwest, it's changed a lot in 20, 25 years, and I worked for them in Iowa. I said I would never do retail again. And then I got brought down to Arkansas to work for them some more, and I spent a lot of years doing their international, hiring folks in those countries, in China and India.
Yeah.
So really, it just touched a lot of different places for Walmart, but they brought me to Arkansas.
You know, I'm an old retail guy myself. I worked for Safeway
Really?
from
Food
the
side. Excellent.
10th or 11th grade in high school, 12th in Battery, 12th in Lewis, Asher and University, Asher and Roosevelt, Geyer Springs, Southwest City Mall, all over.
This is before Walmart really got into the food side.
Safeway was #1 grocer in the world,
Absolutely.
and
Out
it's
of
hard to find a
Ohio?
Safeway now.
Where they out of Ohio? Where were they based?
Out of Oakland, California.
California. Okay.
And they've made a resurgence on the West Coast,
Okay.
but really had a hard time and started shutting down entire regions
Wow.
in the United States. Of course, Walmart now
And
went
does-
long beyond where Sam had a little store, five and dime, if you will.
That's right.
And now they're into food and neighborhood markets and gasoline.
That's correct.
And
Logistics
some other
is
things.
the biggest piece.
Yeah.
I think the differentiator from Walmart and most other places is their logistics,
Yeah.
getting it from the distribution warehouse to the store.
Yeah.
Because everybody can probably buy it at a reasonable price. Can you get it to the consumer fastest?
Yeah.
And then obviously Amazon comes in and starts mailing and shipping, and so that became a big competitor of Walmart. So now Walmart is trying to compete with that. But anyway, that's kind of some of that dynamics
So you're,
in the retail
a
world.
retail guy, if you will.
Business and yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you came to faith at how old then, as a
Oh
teenager?
gosh, I was probably in my early 20s.
Yeah.
But
Did you go to college?
I did. I went to school in Ames, Iowa State. After I left
Is
seminary.
that the Hawkeyes?
That's
Did
the
I mess up?
Cyclones. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
That's
just Iowa.
That's Iowa. That's
University,
right.
right?
Yeah, that other school. Yeah. Cyclones is Iowa
Cyclones.
State. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm from Jonesboro. That's Jonesboro Hurricane. So we got a lot going on.
Absolutely.
I
yeah.
went to junior high at Annie Camp. We were the Whirlwinds. So
Look, Cyclones,
we got all kinds of
hurricanes,
connections
so
here.
Excellent.
So we got about 3 minutes in this
Okay.
segment. Tell me how important is fostering, mentoring, and adopting, not from an adult perspective,
Sure.
but how important is that to children growing up in care?
I think
that somebody loves me on purpose.
Sure. What a great question. I look back and how I again struggled trying to figure out. All kids will struggled with this identity thing.
Yeah.
Not as long, because if you know mom and dad, you know mom and dad. So now you're just figuring out why I got pimples on my face and why is my voice changing. Just regular things you go through as a teen, puberty, and is she gonna say yes? Will she go to the high school prom or dance and all? But when you're adopted and you're trying to figure out this thing of identity, I think you have some folks who, I call it 50-50. 50% say, I don't care who my birth parents are, because if they loved me, they would have kept me. And I think it's a ruse, it's a wall, and that's because they don't want to face what could be a potential rejection again.
Yeah.
If I've been given up, was I rejected, did I do something wrong? And so they don't want to deal with any of that, and I just love the people who are loving on me. Then you got this other 50% that says, I want to find out. I want them to know, like me, I'm okay. Thank you for giving me life, regardless of how I got here. But even then, there's still this other end that when I do go out and reach to find them, they could reject me again, or I could be pushed aside. Wow. And so both sides. So I think this whole world of adoptees looking for a sense of belonging and care. That's why, again, knowing who your father is and who created you gives you a base, no matter what you will experience and could face, that he still loves you and he's got a plan for you.
You know, being raised in Jonesboro, my dad was a weekend alcoholic. And when I met Jesus, what really precipitated that was reading the New Testament and going, here's a father that loves me.
That's it.
And that's the Heavenly Father.
That's correct.
Why don't you look right here at camera 3, and we've got 45 seconds, and just tell people why they should support the ministry of Second Chance Youth Ranch, which is all about fostering, mentoring, and adopting.
You will spend time trying to figure out, and you know that most people in the world, they know someone who's been adopted, someone who's been in foster care, so someone's experienced going through a pregnancy, and now what do I do? So you have an opportunity to make an impact and a change. If you can't adopt, you can maybe look into foster care. And if you can't foster, you can volunteer. You can go and say, hey, I can go and maybe do some tutoring. There's something that you can do, and by getting engaged and getting involved, that can change the trajectory of somebody. It was changed for me, and you get a chance to do that. And I tell you, it may seem small to just do a tutoring or to say, hey, I'll be a respite and give some respite care to a family that is doing foster care with a large sibling group. But that can have a dynamic change on these kids who are just looking for a forever family. And the last piece is this: we're going into the holidays. This is National Adoption Awareness Month. And so you got a lot of families who have adopted and brought kids in, give them a forever family, a foundation. But you got a lot of kids who are still searching for that forever family. And they're going into the holidays, and again, that question of, am I loved? Does somebody know me and see me? And again, their Heavenly Father does. And you get a chance to participate in that by saying, I can do something.
Yeah. You know, the prophet shows up in Zarephath, and a widow woman there, commanded by the Lord to sustain him, has nothing but a handful of mineral oil. And he says, make me a cake first. Would you put God first? And Jesus has a special place in his heart for hurting children. God bless you. Thanks for watching this show. We're praying for you. Will you pray for us as we continue to reach out to make a difference in foster care right here in Arkansas and the BTN viewing audience? God bless you. See you next time right here at Second Chance Youth Ranch TV. Bye-bye.